Richard Harlan sat motionless in his lavish office atop the sprawling villa in the suburbs of New York, his gaze drifting blankly past the expansive glass window. Before him sprawled complex architectural blueprints and million-dollar deals, yet his hand shook over a mug of cold coffee. At 45, Richard had it all: fame, immense wealth from his renowned architecture career. But his heart bore a burden no riches could lift. His daughter Emily, just 5 years old and fair-skinned like her late mother, was wasting away right before him. She shunned food, endured endless sleepless nights, and mysterious fevers ravaged her delicate frame. Since Claire, his tender white wife, perished in a sudden car crash, the grand home had turned into a void of echoes. Richard summoned top doctors, elite nutritionists, and even cutting-edge gadgets to track Emily's every pulse. But nothing helped. He was adrift in despair, like a vessel lost in a misty sea without a rudder. If you're gripped by this tale, smash that subscribe button and drop a comment. Where are you watching from, and what's the time there? His gut twisted every time he thought of Emily, his 5-year-old spitfire with her mother's fair skin and wild curls, fading away upstairs like a ghost. She wouldn't touch food anymore, not a bite, not even her favorite mac and cheese. Sleepless nights left her tossing in sweat-soaked sheets, and those random fevers hit like freight trains, spiking her temp without warning. It started right after Claire's crash. His wife, God, Claire, gone in a blink on that rainy interstate. One minute she was texting him about picking up groceries, the next sirens and a cop at the door. The mansion, once buzzing with laughter and Claire's off-key singing in the kitchen, now felt like a tomb. Echoes bounced off the marble floors, the kind that made you jump at your own shadow. Richard had thrown everything at it. Top docs from Johns Hopkins flying in on his dime, nutrition gurus spouting meal plans, even a fancy smartwatch strapped to Emily's tiny wrist. Beeping alerts every time her heart raced. But zilch, nada. The kid just curled up tighter, eyes hollow like she'd seen too much already. Days blurred into a grind. Richard barricaded himself in the office, sketches piling up unfinished, the wall clock's tick-tock drilling into his skull like a bad hangover. He blew off meetings. Family emergency, he'd mutter to his assistant over the phone, and turned down gigs that could have netted 8 figures. The architect who'd once charmed clients with his sharp wit now looked like a wreck. Bags under his eyes, stubble creeping in because who had time to shave? Work was his escape, but even that tanked. He'd sketch a line, then zone out, replaying Claire's last voicemail. "Love you, babe. See you soon." Into this mess stepped Margaret, Claire's older sister, a nutrition doc with a crisp white coat and a resume full of fancy clinics. She showed up more and more, breezing through the front door with Tupperware of homemade soups and herbal teas that smelled like a health food store had exploded. "Just trying to help, Richie," she'd say, her voice all sugar and concern, patting his arm like he was a lost puppy. Richard appreciated it, or tried to. Family, right? But something gnawed at him, a chill that hit whenever she lingered too long. An unease he couldn't pin down, like walking into a room and forgetting why you're there. Emily sure as hell didn't warm up to her. The kid would shrink back when Margaret leaned in with a spoon, eyes wide with that raw animal fear kids get when something's off. "Come on, sweetie, just one bite for Aunt Maggie," Margaret cooed, her smile too perfect, too practiced. Emily's little head would shake no, lips pressed tight, turning away to bury her face in her pillow. Richard caught it every time, the flinch, the silent plea. But what could he do? Confront her? Accuse Claire's own sister of, what? Being too helpful? He swallowed it down, told himself he was paranoid, grief messing with his head. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the office gold, Richard heard the faint sobs from upstairs again. Not a full-blown cry, just that muffled whimper that punched him right in the chest. He pushed back from the desk, rubbing his temples, the weight of it all crashing down. The house was too big, too quiet, a constant reminder of what he'd lost. Margaret had dropped by earlier with another batch of nutritious stew, insisting Emily try it. The kid had refused, of course, and now the fever was back. the watch buzzing on his phone like an accusation. He paced to the window, forehead against the cool glass, whispering to himself, "What the hell am I missing?" Down in the kitchen, the old housekeeper, Mrs. Ellis, clattered pots, her sighs heavy in the air. She'd been with the family for years, a steady rock, but even she looked worn thin. "Mr. Harlan," she called up once, voice cracking, "maybe it's time for extra hands around here." Richard nodded to himself. Yeah, maybe. Anything to break this cycle of hell. But as night fell, the mansion's shadows stretched long, and Emily's cries faded to whimpers. Richard felt the despair clamp down harder, like a ship lost at sea, no lighthouse in sight. Little did he know help was on the way, but so was the storm. Richard Harlan slammed his phone down on the desk, the echo cutting through the quiet office like a gunshot. "Fine, send her over tomorrow," he barked to the agency rep, rubbing his bloodshot eyes. Mrs. Ellis had nagged him for weeks. The house was too big. She was getting on in years. And with Emily's mess, they needed backup. He figured, what the hell? Anything to lighten the load. The candidate's resume popped up in his email. Aisha Thompson, 30, from the rough side of Brooklyn, spotty work history in diners and cleaning gigs, but glowing refs about her grit. Black woman, no frills. Hell, as long as she could scrub floors and not add to the drama, she'd do. Next morning, Aisha showed up at the villa's massive oak door, backpack slung over one shoulder, faded jeans, and a clean tee that screamed practical. No makeup, hair pulled back tight, but her eyes, damn, they held a quiet fire, like she'd stared down worse than a fancy house full of ghosts. Mrs. Ellis let her in, muttering about the tour. "Kitchen first, then upstairs. Mr. Harlan's buried in work, so don't bug him." Aisha nodded, taking it all in. The gleaming counters, the fridge bigger than her old apartment. As they poked around the pantry, a soft wail drifted down from above. Not a scream, just that gut-wrenching sob of a kid who's given up hoping anyone hears. Aisha froze mid-step, her chest tightening. She closed her eyes for a beat, breathing deep, then turned to Mrs. Ellie. "Is the little one? Mind if I check on her?" The housekeeper blinked, surprised but shrugged. "Suit yourself, but she's a tough nut. Docs can't crack her." Upstairs, Emily's room hit Aisha like a punch. Pink walls faded, toys scattered like forgotten dreams, and the girl curled on the bed, clutching a ratty teddy bear. Her fair skin looked ghostly pale, and her eyes puffy from tears. That smartwatch on her wrist flashed red, beeping faintly. Asha didn't barge in. She eased down to the floor cross-legged, pulling a couple of dish towels from her bag and starting to fold them slowly, deliberately. No eye contact, just calm vibes. Emily peeked through her fingers, curiosity flickering past the fear. "Hey there," Aisha said softly, like chatting with an old friend. "I'm Aisha, here to help keep things tidy around this big old place." Silence hung, but the sobs hitched, then stopped. Aisha kept folding. "Back when I was your age, scraping by in the projects, I had a bear just like that. Called him Braveheart. Weird name, huh? But he got me through the rough spots, made me feel like I could handle anything." Emily's hands dropped a fraction, her blue eyes locking on Aisha's movements. The room felt less heavy, like air finally circulating. "What's your buddy's name?" Aisha asked, glancing up gently. For the first time in what felt like forever, Emily's voice cracked out, tiny but clear. "Brownie. 'Cause his nose is pink." Aisha grinned widely, real warmth breaking through. "Brownie, huh? Sounds like a champ. Bet he's seen some adventures with you." That spark lit something. Not a flood, but a trickle. Emily uncurled a bit, clutching Brownie tighter but with less desperation. Downstairs, Richard caught wind from Mrs. Ellis over lunch. A quick sandwich he forced down. "New girl's up with Emily. Kid stopped crying at least." He paused mid-bite, hope flickering faintly in his chest, but he shoved it down. Seen too many false starts. 3 days flew by in a blur. Aisha dove in, scrubbing baseboards, organizing the chaos, but always circling back to Emily. No pushing, just being there, sharing bits of her life, dodging bullies in the hood, dreaming big despite the odds. Then bam, one afternoon, tiny footsteps pattered down the stairs. Emily shuffled into the kitchen, Dragging Brownie by one ear, eyes wide but not scared, Aisha looked up from slicing bread. Butter knife paused. "Hungry, kiddo?" "Casual, no big deal." Emily nodded, climbing onto a stool without a word. Aisha slid over toast, cut into neat triangles, golden and warm. Emily stared, then grabbed one, nibbling slowly. Mrs. Ellis dropped her sponge, tears welling up fast. "Lord Almighty," she whispered, hand over her mouth. Richard wandered in right then, freezing in the doorway. His daughter, his fading girl, was eating, actually chewing, swallowing. He leaned against the frame, throat tight, as Emily mumbled through crumbs. "Aisha makes magic triangles. But peace? Nah, not yet." Margaret swung by that evening, arms loaded with her usual steaming thermos of soup, that Doctor Knows Best smile plastered on. "Heard the good news, Richie. Let me whip up something special for her." She cooed at Emily, spooning out a ladle. The kid's face clouded, pushing the bowl away. "Want Aisha's triangles?" Margaret's smile twitched, eyes narrowing for a split second before she laughed it off. "Oh, sweetie, this is better for you." Emily ate a bite to please, but that night the fever crept back. Watch beeping, sheets damp. Richard chalked it up to a coincidence. But Aisha? She clocked it, filing it away sharp. Sunlight filtered through the villa's tall windows, casting warm patches on the hardwood floors that hadn't felt alive in months. Usha moved through the rooms like a quiet force, dusting shelves and folding laundry. But her real magic happened around Emily. The kids' giggles, actual giggles, started echoing down the halls, chasing away the heavy silence. One afternoon, Aisha plopped down on the rug in Emily's room, pulling out an old comic book she'd snagged from the attic. "Check this out, Squirt. Back in my hood, we'd trade these like gold. Ever hear of Wonder Woman kicking butt?" Emily scooted closer, eyes lighting up as Aisha flipped pages, her voice dropping low for the dramatic parts. Richard caught snippets from his office doorway, pausing longer each time. His chest loosened a fraction, that iron grip of worry easing. Hell, he even cracked a smile when Emily burst in one day, waving a crayon drawing. "Look, Daddy, Aisha helped me draw Braveheart fighting monsters." He knelt, ruffling her hair. "That's awesome, kiddo. Monsters don't stand a chance." For the first time since Claire, the house didn't feel like a pressure cooker ready to blow. Meals turned into the highlight. Aisha ditched the force-feeding routine, keeping it low-key. She'd set out simple stuff, yogurt parfaits, fruit skewers shaped like stars, and just hang out, chatting about her rough upbringing. "Grew up in a tiny spot with my grams. No AC in summer, but we'd make snow cones from shaved ice and Kool-Aid. Made the heat bearable." Emily leaned in, spoon dipping in without a fight, her trust building brick by brick. Aisha spotted Richard hovering over lunch, nursing his coffee. "Pull up a chair, Mr. Harlan. These stars won't eat themselves." He hesitated, then sat, awkward at first, but when Emily shoved a skewer his way, "Try it, Daddy," he bit in, the sweetness hitting like a forgotten memory. Bonding snuck up on them. Richard opened up a tad, sharing stories of sketching buildings as a kid, dreaming big like Aisha had. "Never thought I'd end up here, but life throws curveballs." Emily beamed, the three of them laughing over spilled milk. Literal spilled milk that Aisha mopped up with a wink. Mrs. Ellis watched from the sidelines, her eyes misty. "That woman's a godsend," she muttered, crossing herself. But Margaret, she smelled the shy tea and it rattled her cage. Her visits ramped up, always with that doctor bag slung over her shoulder, packed with special blends she swore by. "Richie, honey, I know nutrition inside out. Let me handle this." One evening, she breezed in with a pot of her signature soup, steam curling invitingly. Emily froze mid-bite of Aisha's sandwich, her face paling. "Just a taste, sweetie pie." Margaret pushed, spoon hovering. The kid took it reluctantly, eyes darting to Aisha like a lifeline. That night, the fever spiked again. Watch going nuts, Emily tossing fitfully. Richard Pace chalking it to one of those things, but Aisha? She wasn't buying. The next day, while Emily napped peacefully after Aisha's oatmeal, Margaret cornered Richard in the hall. "That maid's got her hooks in deep, Emily barely looks at me anymore. Her voice dripped honey, but her eyes flashed steel. Richard brushed it off. She's helping, Mags, kids eating. But the unease lingered, a knot in his gut. Aisha kept tabs, sharp as a tack. She jotted notes in a beat-up notebook stashed in her bag. Dates Margaret showed, what she brought, Emily's symptoms after. Patterns jumped out. Fevers only hit post-Margaret meals, sleep wrecked, that watch screaming red. Coincidence, my ass, Aisha muttered under her breath, scrubbing the sink harder. One afternoon, reorganizing the spice rack, cloves here, cumin there, she reached back and her fingers brushed something cold, hidden behind the jars. A small glass vial, label half peeled, residue inside smelling off. Chemical sharp. Her pulse kicked up. There was no forgotten condiment. What the hell, she whispered, tucking it away quickly before Mrs. Ellis shuffled in. Suspicion coiled tight in her chest, a street-smart instinct screaming foul play. But proof? She needed more. For now, she played it cool, watching Margaret's every move like a hawk. Aisha's gut twisted as she stepped into the garden, the afternoon sun beating down on the manicured grass. Max, the family's loyal golden retriever, lay sprawled near the rose bushes, heaving like he'd run a marathon. Foam flecked his muzzle, eyes glazed over in pain. Oh, hell no, she muttered, dropping her laundry basket and rushing over. The dog whimpered, tail thumping weakly as she knelt, stroking his fur. Nearby, a porcelain bowl, same fancy kind Margaret always used for her special deliveries, sat tipped over, remnants of soup crusted inside. Aisha's mind raced. Emily had turned down Margaret's latest batch yesterday, but Max must have sniffed it out from the trash. Mr. Harlan, she yelled toward the house, voice cracking, urgent. Richard bolted out, face draining color at the sight. What happened? He was fine this morning? Together they scooped Max up, Richard cradling the big lug like a baby, and piled into the SUV, tires screeching toward the vet clinic downtown. Aisha sat in the back, hand on Max's head, whispering, Hang in there, boy. We got you. The drive blurred in tension, Richard gripping the wheel, white-knuckled, jaw set. This place better know their stuff. Paid enough for his checkups. At the vet, the doc, a no-nonsense guy in scrubs, rushed Max into exam. Minutes stretched like hours in the sterile waiting room, Richard pacing grooves in the linoleum, Aisha flipping through her notebook, connecting dots. Finally, the vet emerged, clipboard in hand. Traces of a stimulant in his system. Stuff like caffeine or worse, harmless in small doses for adults, but toxic as hell for pets or kids. Causes a racing heart, fever, and vomiting. Lucky you caught it early. IV fluids should flush it. Richard's face hardened. How'd he get it? We don't keep junk like that around. The vet shrugged. Could be anything. Spoiled food, accidental ingestion. Run tests if you want, but watch what he eats. Aisha went cold, pieces slamming together. Racing heart, fever. That matched Emily's spells to a T. The watch alerts, the night sweats after Margaret's visits. Accidental, my foot, she thought, but kept her trap shut for now. Richard paid the bill, muttering curses, and they loaded a groggy Max back home, the dog dozing in Aisha's lap. Back at the villa, Richard settled Max in his bed by the kitchen, tossing a blanket over him. Thanks for the heads up, Aisha. Don't know what we'd do without you. She nodded, but her mind churned. While he headed upstairs to check on Emily, Aisha slipped into Claire's old room. Dusty now, like a shrine nobody touched. Mrs. Ellis had asked her to tidy it up and air it out. Aisha started simple, wiping surfaces, straightening photos of happier times, Claire's smile beaming next to Richard, Emily as a toddler giggling in her arms. Then, while vacuuming under the desk, her foot bumped a drawer ajar. She pulled it open, curiosity piqued, and spotted a worn leather journal tucked in the back. Heart pounding, she flipped it open, pages yellowed, handwriting elegant but shaky. Entries jumped out. Margaret cooked for me again today, felt dizzy after, stomach in knots, but didn't want to worry Richard. If I refuse, she pouts like a kid. Aisha's breath hitched. Another. Scared now. Every meal from her leaves me weaker. Want to believe she's just caring, but her eyes. They chill me. Page after page painted a nightmare. Claire documenting the slow drain, the unexplained ills mirroring Emily's. One gut puncher. She wants my life, my husband. If I go, she'll slide right in. God, protect Emily if I'm right. Aisha clutched the book, hands trembling, tears pricking hot. This wasn't grief or accident. This was poison, deliberate and cold. Margaret, Claire's own sister, had whittled her down to nothing, faking the crash maybe, or just waiting for the body to give out. And now the kid? To clear the board, snag Richard and his fortune all to herself? Rage boiled in Aisha's veins, but she shoved it down. Street smarts kicking in. No rash moves, evidence first. She snapped quick photos of key pages on her phone, then tucked the journal back, careful as hell. Back in her quarters, a small guest room downstairs, she pulled out her notebook, adding furious notes. Max's poisoning linked to Margaret's bowl. Symptoms identical to Emily and Claire. Arrows connected dates, foods, and effects. She even bagged a sample of the soup residue from the trash, sealing it tight in a Ziploc. "Got you, you snake," she whispered, pulse thundering. But doubt nagged. Richard might not buy it, loyal to family ties. She needed airtight proof, something undeniable. For now, she played normal, helped Emily with homework, kept the house humming. Inside, though, the hunt was on. Aisha vowed silent. Whatever it took, she'd nail this before Emily paid the price. Rain hammered the villa's roof like 1,000 fists. Thunder rumbling distant as Aisha paced the kitchen, her notebook in Claire's journal clutched tight. Her heart jackhammered. Evidence solid now, no turning back. Richard trudged in from the office, soaked from a quick dash to the garage, lines etched deeper on his face. "Rough day," he muttered, slinging his jacket over a chair. Aisha swallowed hard, stepping forward. "Mr. Harlan, Richard, we gotta talk. It's about Emily. And Claire." He froze, eyes narrowing. "What do you mean?" She laid it out on the table. The journal first, pages open to Claire's shaky scrawl. Richard sank into a stool, fingers tracing the words. "Margaret cooked again. Dizzy, aching. Her eyes scare me." His breath hitched, color draining fast. "This can't be real. Claire never said a word." Aisha pushed her notebook next. Dates, symptoms, arrows linking Margaret's visits to every fever spike. Max's poisoning tying it all. "It's not a coincidence. She's been slipping something in. That vial I found, the patterns, it adds up." Richard's hands shook, flipping pages frantically. "Poison? My wife's sister? Jesus, Aisha, that's insane." But doubt cracked his voice, memories flooding. Claire's accidents, her fading health brushed off as stress. He slammed the book shut, head in hands. "Why? What the hell for?" Aisha leaned in, voice steady. "To get you. Clear the field. Step in like she belongs." Before he could process, the front door creaked open, rain gusting in. Margaret shook off her umbrella, box of cookies in hand, that polished smile gleaming. "Evening, folks. Brought treats. Fresh baked. Full of good stuff." Her eyes flicked to the table, smile faltering. "What's this? Family meeting?" Richard stood slowly, voice low and edged. "Mags, sit down. We need to chat about Claire's diary, about Emily's illnesses." Margaret's laugh rang hollow, setting the box down carefully. "Diary? Oh, Richie, that's ancient history. Claire was always dramatic, you know that." But her hands fidgeted, knuckles white. Aisha cut in sharply. "I saw you drop something in Emily's tea last week. And Max? That soup bowl? Vet said stimulants. Same crap hitting the kid." Margaret's face tightened, eyes darting like a cornered animal. "You? A maid spinning tales? Please." Richard stepped closer, voice rising. "Explain it, Margaret. The entries. Claire wrote about feeling sick after your meals, pouting if she refused. What did you do?" She backed up a step, composure cracking. "Nothing. I loved her. Like a sister. And Emily. I'd never—" But tears welled up, her mask slipping. Thunder boomed outside, lights flickering. Then it shattered. Margaret's shoulders slumped, a wild gleam igniting in her eyes. Fine. You want the truth? Yeah, it was me. From college days, Richie, I loved you first. But you picked her. That perfect little Claire. I helped her along. A drop here, a mix there, made her weak out of the picture. And the kid? She's in the way, too. Once they're gone, you'd see me. Love me like I deserve. Richard reeled, face twisting in horror. You killed her? My wife? For what? A sick crush? Margaret snarled, stepping forward. Not crush, love. Real love you ignored. I slaved in med school, built my career, but you, blind. Upstairs, Emily's footsteps pattered, drawn by the yells. She peeked in the doorway, brownie dangling from her hand, eyes wide. Daddy? Aunt Maggie? Margaret's gaze locked on the girl, madness surging. If I can't have him, neither can you. She lunged, yanking a vial from her purse. The same chemical stink Aisha knew too well. Cap popped, liquid glinting deadly. Emily screamed, scrambling back. Richard charged, no! Grabbing Margaret's arm, but she twisted free, seizing Emily's wrist hard. Drink it, brat! Join your mom! Aisha exploded into action, no thought, just instinct. She barreled across the room, slamming into Margaret, hand clamping the vial wrist. Let her go! They grappled fiercely, vial tipping, precarious. Emily wailed, Aisha! Daddy! Richard yanked Emily free, shielding her behind him. Margaret hissed, free hand snatching a crystal vase off the shelf. Heavy, ornate. She swung wildly, cracking it against Aisha's skull with a sick thud. Pain exploded white-hot, blood streaming warm down Aisha's face. She staggered, vision blurring, collapsing to her knees. Run! Emily! Margaret panted, vase shards glittering in her grip, eyes feral. Richard roared, You monster! Shoving Margaret back, Emily sobbing into his shirt. Aisha slumped against the cabinet, world spinning, but fire burned. Fight not over yet. Sirens wailed through the storm, blue and red lights slashing the kitchen windows like knives. The front door burst open, boots thudding heavy. 2 cops stormed in, guns drawn low, badges flashing. NYPD, hands where we can see 'em. The lead barked, eyes sweeping the chaos, Margaret wild-eyed with vase shards, Richard shielding Emily. Aisha slumped bloody against the cabinet. Aisha had dialed 911 discreetly on her phone mid-grapple, whispering frantically about the attack. Cops rolled fast, thank God for that. Margaret recoiled, vial clattering from her grip, face twisting ugly. You called them? You bitch! The officers surged, one tackling her arms back, cuffs clicking sharply. Margaret Harlan, you're under arrest for assault, attempted murder, and poisoning. Richard's voice broke through the din. She's confessed. Killed my wife, targeted my kid. Diaries there, notes too, and she admitted it all. The second cop scooped the evidence, bagging the vial quickly while radioing backup. Emily buried her face in Richard's leg, sobs muffled. Aisha pressed a dish towel to her head, blood soaking through, but she locked eyes with the lead cop. Got it on tape. My phone. Her whole rant. Paramedics piled in next, stretchering Aisha out as thunder cracked overhead. Richard rode shotgun in the ambulance. Emily clutched in his lap, her tiny hand gripping his shirt. She's gonna be okay, right, Adie? He kissed her forehead, throat tight. Yeah, baby. Aisha's tough as nails. At the ER, Doc stitched Aisha's gash, deep but no skull crack, pumping her with fluids while Richard hovered, guilt gnawing raw. Cops took statements, piecing together Iara's diary entries, Aisha's logs matching symptoms to Margaret's visits. Max's vet report in that damning audio. Margaret lawyered up fast, but the DA piled charges: poisoning, manslaughter for Claire, attempted murder on Emily. The trial dragged on for months, headlines screaming, Doc's sister's deadly jealousy. Jury nailed her, 6 years upstate, no parole shot. Richard visited Aisha daily in recovery, flowers from the villa's garden wilting in his grip. You saved us, he murmured one afternoon, sitting bedside as machines beeped softly. Her smile cracked weakly through the bandages. just did what anyone would. But his hand lingered on hers, warmth sparking beyond thanks, eyes meeting longer, talks turning personal. He shared Claire's laugh, his fears of failing as a dad. She opened up about scraping by in Brooklyn, dreaming beyond the grind. Gratitude bloomed quietly into something real. Tentative kisses stolen when Emily napped in the chair. But Margaret? Prison didn't dull her edge. Anonymous letters started trickling, mailed to tabloids, Richard's office, even the school. That maid's a con artist, worming in for the cash, exploiting tragedy to snag a rich widower. Rumors exploded online, reporters camping at the villa gates. Harlan heir poison plot? Gold digger maid or hero? Emily came home from kindergarten one day, tears streaking her cheeks. Kids whispered I'm poison 'cause of the new lady. Why, Daddy? Richard's gut nodded, hugging her fiercely. Ignore 'em, sweetie. They're wrong. Aisha's phone buzzed nastily. Burner texts, sneering. You're just a stand-in. Claire was his real love. White, classy. You'll never measure up. She deleted him fast, but the sting hit deep, old insecurities flaring. Richard caught her staring blankly one night in the hospital room, phone clutched. What's eating you? She spilled, voice cracking. He pulled her close, ignoring the IV tug. Screw the world, Aisha. You saved my girl. Saved me from the dark. That's truth. No one steals it. His whisper anchored her, steady as rock. Emily climbed onto the bed, wrapping her arms around Aisha's neck. They can yap all they want. You're my family now. The kid's words landed softly but mightily, mending cracks Aisha didn't know ran so deep. Tears mixed with laughs, the three tangled in a hug. Margaret schemed on from her cell, poison pens flying, but their bond forged iron, love and trust, a shield no arrow pierced. Months ticked by like calendar pages flipping in a breeze, the villa transforming from a haunted shell into a real home buzzing with life. Heavy curtains got swapped for light ones, letting the sun pour in golden and warm. Emily's laughter rang out sharp and free, chasing Max across the lawn as he yipped, fully bounced back from his close call. Fetch boy, go get it, she hollered, hurling a stick, her cheeks flushed pink, energy off the charts. Aisha watched from the porch, heart swelling. The kid was thriving, no more shadows in those eyes. Richard leaned on the railing beside her, arm brushing hers, casual but electric. Look at her go. Feels like a dream. Their bond had deepened. Quiet, late-night talks turning to shared dreams, hands finding each other naturally. But Margaret's venom still seeped through bars. Anonymous letters hitting mailboxes, whispers fueling tabloid trash. Harlan's Black Maid, hero or hustler, screamed one headline, neighbors side-eyeing at the grocery store. Emily tugged Richard's sleeve one morning after school drop-off, lip quivering. Why do people stare? Say mean stuff about Aisha? He knelt, pulling her close. Jealous folks talking crap, sweetie. Doesn't change us. But the hits kept coming. Burner text to Aisha's phone. You'll always be the help. Dark skin, wrong side of the tracks. Claire was his type. She deleted them quick, but they stung like salt in a cut, old doubts whispering loud. Richard caught her one evening, staring out the window, fist clenched. Spill it, he said softly, wrapping arms around her from behind. She turned, eyes glistening. They say I'm using you, that I don't fit. He cupped her face, thumb brushing a tear. World's full of noise, Aisha, but you pulled us from hell, saved my girl, woke me up. That's our truth. No color, no background crap changes it. His voice anchored her, steady and fierce, melting the ice in her chest. Emily barreled in then, jumping into the hug. Who cares what dummies say? You're my family, Aisha. For real. The kid's arms squeezed tight, words landing like armor, shielding Aisha from the barbs. Margaret plodded on, arrows flying from her cell, but they bounced off. Love and trust forging an unbreakable wall. Time healed the rest. The villa brimmed with light. Family dinners turning rowdy with jokes. Emily teaching Aisha cartwheels in the yard. Richard sketching again, inspiration firing hot. One crisp fall afternoon under the garden's oak tree, leaves crunching underfoot, Richard dropped to one knee, simple ring glinting in his palm. We've lost too much, fought through fire. But with you, it's right. Aisha, marry me. Tears streamed down her face, a smile breaking wide. Hell yes. The wedding kept it low-key. No flashy circus. Just the garden blooming vibrant, close pals and nature's nod. Aisha walked the petal-strewn path in a flowing white dress, wildflowers in her hair, heart pounding, joyful. Richard waited under the arch, eyes locked on her, steady as ever. Emily skipped ahead in her frilly getup, basket swinging, scattering roses with giggles. You're my mom now, right? Laughter rippled through the crowd, vows exchanged raw and true. No blood ties, just choice, sacrifice, trust weaving them tight. In her cold cell upstate, Margaret slid open an envelope, wedding photo tumbling out. Richard, Aisha, Emily hand in hand, radiant under the arch. Fury twisted her face, nails digging in as she ripped it to shreds. They'll pay, she hissed, but it echoed hollow, powerless rage in a cage. Back in the garden, night fell softly, string lights glowing warm. Richard pulled his new wife and daughter close on the bench, Emily's head drooping sleepily on Aisha's shoulder. We're unbreakable now, huh, Daddy? Richard kissed them both, voice thick. Damn straight, kiddo. Family by heart, stronger than anything. They sat wrapped in that glow, understanding, hit deep. Real love blew past the skin color. Roots, all that noise. Built on picks we make, hits we take, faith we stake. Happiness wasn't handed back. It got rebuilt, brick by bloody brick, into something no darkness could crack. In the end, this story reminds us that true family isn't defined by blood, skin color, or where we come from. It's forged through the choices we make, the sacrifices we endure, and the unbreakable trust we build together. Love like that can heal the deepest wounds and stand strong against any storm. What about you? Have you ever found a family in the most unexpected places or overcome barriers that others said couldn't be crossed? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your stories and reflections. Stick around for our next video, where we'll dive into another gripping tale of hidden family secrets and the courage it takes to uncover them. Thanks so much for watching and being part of this journey with us. See you soon. Take care.